Are you concerned about an EMP? Let's do something about that. Hey, Provident Preppers, I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Kylene. And right now in the news, it's a little bit concerning because we have some spy balloon floating over the states, right? And we don't know what's really going on. But the first thing that I thought of when I saw it was EMP. John, what is an EMP?
Okay, so without getting super technical, it's a surge or a pulse of energy coming down, electromagnetic energy coming down, and that pulse is very large and it fries electronics, basically. Let's just say that it destroys power supplies and destroys electronics. And of course, our world that we live in, we basically depend on electronics for almost everything that we do. So if this had happened back in the 1800s, who cares? They didn't have any of this stuff. They knew how to live without all the electricity and all the electronics that we have now. Our life is pretty good with these electronics, but when they go away, suddenly we're in a precarious spot.
Because we've been depending on them. Now, an electromagnetic pulse, one of the things is that it's set off high in the atmosphere, right? The higher it is, the wider it's effective.
Sure.
Is that correct?
Yeah, and actually let's clarify that there are natural EMPs and there are man-caused EMPs. Now, the natural ones come from the sun, and the good thing about the natural ones is we have the ability to kind of know when they're coming. We have scientists that are looking out and they see what's happening on the sun. They have sensors and they know what kinds of things are happening. So we have a little bit of warning. With enemy fire EMP, we don't. This happens suddenly, and you're right. Depending on the height of that's a line of sight. It can cover a small area or it could cover the entire United States or even larger. So these are things we don't know. We don't know when this would happen, if this will happen. We know that it could happen, and we need to prepare.
So let's talk a little bit about what we need to do to prepare. Now, quite frankly, if we're prepared, we just don't need to be afraid, right? Don't allow fear to dictate your actions. But today for us, we are looking at our preps, and I keep some really cool solar flashlights, my hybrid lights in my window of my office so that they're always charged. I think it's time for me to just put them in the Faraday cage. Yes, that means that they're going to be more difficult to access, but I just got this feeling like, it might be worth it to take a few precautions. So in this video, we're going to talk about the precautions that we are taking as we check our preps, and maybe it'll give you some good ideas. Now, the thing that I think is really important to remember is it's like taking our world and throwing us into the 1800s, right? Where you don't have electricity for lighting, cooking, anything. And so we're going to go through some of the things that we are concerned about. One of the things that I would recommend is this book from Arthur Bradley. He is known as the EMP doctor. If you look him up on YouTube, you can find out how to make Faraday cages, homemade ones, expedient Faraday cages. But EMP attacks and solar storms, he does a good job of explaining all the brilliant stuff that goes on behind here and how it will affect us and what we need to do. So I'll leave a link to this in the description of this video, and it might be a resource that you would be interested in, but free. You can go to his YouTube channel and check out some of the things that he has to say, and he does a really good job of educating. But for us and what we are doing today, what is the number one thing that you think people should worry about today? Well, not worry about, take action on. There's a difference, right? Because if something like this happens, we have no first responders, right?
Right.
No fire, no police, no emergency medical. And so there's definitely some things that we need to worry about.
Okay, and we'll go through a list of...
Not worry about. Why do I keep saying worry about?
And that's the point I'm going to make right here is it time to panic? No, it's never time to panic. But it is time to prepare. Just keep making the steps that we talk about all the time. And what we're going to go through today, we've got videos on, we've got other resources on, and we'll leave links for those So this isn't new stuff. This is a reminder and a list of things that you can check on and work on. So definitely water would be very near the top of that list. A lot of municipal water systems will fail. A lot of wells will fail. You know, if people are relying on a personal well, there are things that we can do about that. One of the most important things is we need to store some water, and we need to be able to prepare ourselves to acquire and purify water once that storage is gone.
So we'll leave some links for that because that's too complicated to talk about right now. But even if it's just filling up cleaned out old soda bottles or things like that, just so you've got water stored, that's really important. The second thing that I would take care of right now are prescription medications. If you are dependent on any prescription medication to keep you alive, absolutely, I would see what I could do about going out and getting that refilled and slowly building up a stock. Jace Medical is a great place to go to. I know that they're soon going to be having a program where you have a licensed physician that will write you a prescription that you can fill through them. So we'll leave a link to Jace Medical and you can see what they're offering now. But if I were on a prescription med, that's something I'd take care of today.
Absolutely. And backup power, if you have medical equipment that you need to use to keep you alive or to keep you healthy, having that backup power available to get that job done, very important.
And the other thing about that backup power, whether it's a power bank or a generator, is that you need to protect that from an electromagnetic pulse.
Right.
Which, back to Arthur Bradley and the Faraday cages, you could totally do things expediently to protect that, but you can't do it after the event. It has to be done before.
Number 4 on our list is shelf-stable foods. Now, you might wonder why that isn't higher on the list. I think these other things that we've talked about are definitely more important. But having food set aside, and as you know, we always recommend a 90-day supply of everyday foods and a longer-term supply. Get this in place because this is important to keep your family fed and to give you the energy you need.
And what am I doing about that today? Well, I had one of my friends. I have such great friends. She called me, I think it was yesterday, and said, hey, one of the stores near us has chicken breast on sale for $1.10 a pound. It comes in 40-pound boxes. Do you want me to get you any? And at first I'm thinking, oh, I don't know if I have time. And then all of a sudden I thought, nope, Kylene, you need to do this. So this morning she just dropped off this 40-pound box of chicken, and I am going to marinate it, cook it up, and then I'm going to freeze dry it. She is going to take that and she is going to pressure can it into bottles. Either way, it's going to be shelf stable for either one of us and a great resource as times get tough. So just gradually get your supply, right? Go out to the store and stock up your pantry. Do what you need to do to make sure that you have food.
And you knew this was coming. Garden. If you have any ability to grow a garden of any size, please do so. Create some of your own ability to provide the food that you need. Tell us more, Mama.
So edible landscape. Plant plants in your yard, even amongst your other beautiful plants that will produce food, such as berry bushes, right? Grapevines can be gorgeous. Just think about ways that you can produce food. It doesn't have to be a vegetable garden. You can plant fruit trees. Actually, they're very beautiful. So incorporate some of that in it. I know that's a little bit out, but spring is coming and we don't know that this is happening today at all, but it is a very real threat and our food supply could be down for a very, very long time. Okay, so next is financial.
Absolutely.
Financial. We're already on the brink financially, right? With the economy and what's happening with it. But in an EMP, what are you gonna do when credit card machines don't work? You can't get money out of an ATM. All that system that we rely on every day is gone. So what do you need to do to prepare for that?
Well, of course, we're doing most of that. We're preparing in advance. We've got our food, we've got water, all these things in place so that hopefully our need to go do those things will be greatly diminished. Having some cash on hand and just the ability, the network, the community to trade and help each other get through any kind of a crisis.
Yeah, and that's where my friends come in. We are so blessed to have such a good relationships with so many different people that we have something that might be a blessing to them, and they have things that would be a blessing to us, and we just take care of each other. So work on those relationships and build them.
Right. Our number 6 item is communication. And we've talked before about the importance of communication both ways. There will be radio stations that are EMP hardened that we will be able to connect with to get information. Shortwave radio is a great resource because we can pick up channels from all over the world. So that ability, and then the ability to communicate two-way to those that we love, those that we are trying to help. And so that's another important thing. And again, these have to be protected in a Faraday cage so that they're workable when we need them.
And okay, so we've got some great both posts on the providentprepper.org and videos that we can link to that kind of break this down and explain it where we don't have time today. But the other thing with communication that I would strongly recommend are your library, your books, because right now we have a question and we go to Google, right? And we can Google anything we want to know about. If we have an EMP, Google's gone. All that wealth of information is gone. And the only resources that we will have are from the books in our library and for the
knowledge in our
brains.
heads.
And back to relationship and those that we know and the knowledge that they have. Many of the books that I have collected at either yard sales or secondhand stores, different places like that, because a lot of times people are getting rid of those kinds of books. Some of them I have paid big money for, but
you notice they're all kind of garden related.
They're not quite all garden related.
Most of them.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, this is a heavy book. Like this one is a medical reference guide, and I picked it up for just a couple dollars at some yard sale, but in it has such valuable information. But yeah, a lot of the gardening books, like this no-till organic gardening book, there's just great resources that you might need to be able to live without electricity for a year or two and be just self-sustaining. So the next thing that we have is sanitation. The water, some places the water will work, but many places you're not going to have running water. And many places you are not going to have a working sewer. So what are you going to do with human waste? We've got great videos on this. We've got a great post on it. How are you going to take a shower, right? How are you going to stay clean? How are you going to wash your dishes? How are you going to wash your clothes? All these things, suddenly what we've taken for granted, we're going to have to kind of rethink. And so sanitation is a really important thing to kind of address.
And number 8 is transportation. We rely so much on the ability to jump in a car and go places. In an EMP situation, while many of the cars will work, your ability to get fuel is going to be very limited, and at some point that's gone. And so what are your alternative means of getting around? Bikes are a wonderful idea. Carts, wheelbarrows, wagons, different things that you can haul things back and forth. Decide what your methods of transportation are going to be, and let's work on that.
And then just think about it for this last one. You no longer have electricity, so you don't have light, you don't have heat, you don't have a means to cook your food. Your washing machine doesn't work. My bread maker doesn't work.
Right, my power tools, gone.
Yeah, and our freezer, right? So we have backup power for our freezer as long as we protect that power station before the EMP occurs. And so there's all kinds of things that we kind of really need to think about. And one of the difficult things to talk about is that a lot of people, if we have an EMP, there will be a huge amount of people that actually die. And many times, well, not many times, we don't know, we haven't experienced this, but one of the scenarios is that a foreign country would use an EMP to disable us, and then they would come in and they would use their nuclear weapons. And that's just kind of really disheartening. But we aren't here to be sad. We're here to prepare, right?
Absolutely. So think about everything that you do in your life, and like you said, everything from heating and cooling to cooking and heating. And let's find alternative means to do this. We can do this, and this is something that we have the tools, we have the knowledge, we just need to get it and take care of those things.
So for the question of the day, I want you to think that suddenly you're going back in time to the 1800s and you have no electricity. What things do you need to do differently? What could you do to prepare? And what things are you going to do today so that if we are faced with an EMP, you and your family are going to be just fine? Comment below. And thanks for being part of the solution.